mesela takmak gerekiyor. Kayıt başladı. Sanırım başlayabiliriz artık. Herkese günaydın. Değerli katılımcılar.
Good morning, everyone, distinguished participants, esteemed representatives of the business community. Thank you very much for joining us today. By the way, I would like to make a short reminder before we begin. Today we have Turkish and English simultaneous interpretation. So if you click on the button which has the shape of the globe, you can choose English or Turkish interpretation. If you have any questions, please write your questions to the Q&A section so that our experts or speakers can address those questions one by one. I would like to welcome you on behalf of Eurochambers, TOBB and TEBD team. I would like to greet all of you cordially. First of all, thank you very much for joining this very important event in order to improve and encourage energy efficiency in Turkey. You are joining this session on behalf of the Turkish private sector. My name is Oya Ersöz. I am the technical leader and project director of the Turkish EU Business Dialogue project run by Eurochambers. This project is funded by IPA 2. It is co-funded by the European Union and the Turkish government. The TEBD project is working with the final beneficiary of the project, which is Turkish Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchanges. This project is being coordinated by Eurochambers. Our general purpose is to establish dialogue and communication amongst Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchanges in Europe and in Turkey, and to encourage integration between the two communities. We would also like to talk about challenges and opportunities that will emerge as a result of Turkey's future membership to the EU and to create awareness. In line with this project, we try to establish constructive private sector dialogue, which we believe will be fruitful for both sides. So the implementation of the TEBD project requires the involvement of members of chambers of commodity exchanges and chambers of industries in Europe and in Turkey. We develop joint projects and we encourage active participation in policy dialogues. We have been organizing more than 100 events, which include capacity building activities as well. So as I said a minute ago, we have approximately 100, maybe more than 100 activities in order to serve this purpose. Today, we're gathered here to give energy efficiency training to Turkish SMEs. We are going to focus on capacity building component. In general, we are going to talk about what energy efficiency is, what kind of benefits it will bring to your enterprise, what kind of advantages can you acquire as a result of energy efficiency? How can you achieve up to 30% energy efficiency by making very small changes in the way you operate your business? We have very distinguished speakers and experts from many different countries. There is also a presentation which will be done by Bursa Chamber of Commerce. And in this particular section, we are going to talk about energy efficiency project of Bursa Chamber of Commerce, what they have been doing in order to achieve energy efficiency. We are going through a very important period in Turkey-EU relations. The EU Green Deal is now on the table. So we will talk about what kind of action plan Turkey has in order to comply with the requirements of the EU Green Deal. We are going to talk about legal requirements, for instance. In general, we will talk about what EU requires the foreign companies to do. And our EU experts will focus more on the EU side of this debate. What kind of energy efficiency best practices are prevalent in the EU? What kind of plans EU has for 2030, 2050? They will talk about carbon footprint report, water footprint report, and green transformation action plans, which are being implemented in Europe. So these are the general topics that we will try and focus on. Energy efficiency, use of alternative energy resources, the financial support mechanisms in order to encourage energy efficiency are other topics that we will deal with. I do not want to take too much of your time. Thank you for being with us today. I hope that this is going to be a very fruitful event for us all. Now I would like to give the floor to the representative of TOBB, Ayşe Çelebi Doğan, who is the manager of the Turkish assemblies. Thank you very much, Oya. I would like to bid a warm welcome to everyone and greet everyone on behalf of the Turkish Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchanges. Welcome to the training on energy efficiency in Turkey. I'm happy to be here. My name is Ayşe Çelebi Doğan. I'm representing the Assembly of Turkish Sectors in TOBB. I've been working at TOBB for a very long time. You know, energy efficiency is very important in order to reduce the burden of energy cost on economy, in order to secure energy supply and minimize external dependency and related risks. It is also very important for the protection of environment. It is in line with our national development goals, and it is an important part of Turkey's foreign trade goals. It is a multidisciplinary field as well. The EU published its European Green Deal and increased its expectations from the relevant stakeholders. Now, clean energy has become a must in production chain. There are a lot of obligations that we have to fulfill. But it might look like a disadvantage for the people who are in business. But if we fulfill these requirements, this will also bring a significant competitive edge. But of course, the rules of the game has changed in international trade with the entry into force of the Green Deal. As you know, Turkey has a high demand for energy, and this demand is mostly met by external, by international sources. So it is very important for us to ensure energy security. As our President Rifat Hisarcıklı said, the cheapest source of energy is energy efficiency. What do we do in order to ensure energy efficiency? We work with relevant ministries, follow up the developments in international arena, and TOBB is an important part and parcel of all these activities. We have an EU Green Deal working group which tries to support public policies in this regard. And National Energy Efficiency Action Plan Monitoring and Steering Committee is led by the Ministry of Energy, and we are a part of that steering committee. We also have a working group in order to encourage projects to improve energy efficiency. This working group has been looking at best practices in the world, and as a result of that, they will come up with certain recommendations. We also have Turkish Climatization Assembly, which tries to create an incentive mechanism to build green or energy efficient buildings in Turkey. Waste management and generating energy out of domestic waste is another topic that we have been working on within this commission. Distinguished participants, it is very important for us to own and to embrace energy efficiency policies in Turkey. They should become a part of our company mission, and we should allocate a budget to this goal. Otherwise, we will run the risk of losing our competitiveness. I do not want to take too much of your time because time is of essence and we need to use time efficiently as well. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very fruitful meeting. Have a good day. Thank you very much, Ayşe. Now, I would like to give the floor to Angela. Angela is the capacity building expert in our TEBD project. Angela, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Aise. Thank you so much, Erja, for your warm welcoming words to all the participants. Welcome all the participants from my side as well, and also to all the EU experts and Turkish experts that are here with us. I'm gonna go briefly through the program, what we are gonna address today with our experts. So if you allowed me to share the screen, you should be able now to see the program. So briefly, we will now present all the teams. So I'm going to introduce secondly, since all my Mrs. Oya already presented, I would like to again give the floor to the experts to give the opportunity to present themselves. And then we will start with Mr. Jampolat introducing energy efficiency. Later on, we will have a short coffee break, and then we will continue with the two EU experts that we have here today to raise the energy efficiency in Europe. I would like also to remind everyone that the Q&A tool is ready, so please do not hesitate during the entire training to address any question to the experts. Also, you have the chat in case you would like to share any doubt or any concern. So now let's start with the presentations. I would like to give the floor directly to Jampolat, and then we will continue with the EU experts. Thank you. Jampolat, please, the floor is yours.
Teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Distinguished guests, before I proceed with the presentation, I believe I need to present myself, or shall I go straight into the presentation?
İsterseniz önce sizleri tanıtalım.
If you want, you can
Pekala.
Then I'm going to present myself very briefly. You can briefly introduce yourself, what you do in your chamber, and then maybe we can introduce the EU experts very briefly and proceed with your presentation finally. Good morning, everybody. My name is Canpolat Çakal. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm working at the Bursa Chamber of Commerce. I'm the manager of the Energy Efficiency Center. I have been working on energy efficiency since the end of 2002. In 2003, Ministry of Energy organized an energy efficiency program, and I received a certificate, an energy efficiency certificate from the ministry. Since then, I worked with more than 1,000 companies in order to improve their energy efficiency goals and environment. And for the last 6 years, I've been working at Bursa Chamber of Commerce in the area of energy efficiency, accreditation, and relevant measurements. I would like to thank all of you. I believe that this is a very timely and significant meeting. I'm going to try and summarize what is being done in Turkey. And after that, we will listen to what happens in Europe. I'm very keen on listening to the second part of this presentation, which the EU experts will deliver.
Angela?
Yes.
Angela?
Please, Jofra, Javier, Sonia, would you like to introduce yourself before Canpolat proceed with the presentation?
Very well. Perhaps I will start and then pass on to my colleague, Sonia and Javier. So my name is Jeffrey Saliba. I'm energy advisor for the Malta Business Bureau, which is the EU advisory body to the Chamber of Commerce, the present industry. I've been involved with the Bureau on energy and water efficiency for over 10 years now. And my main role has been to promote energy efficiency with enterprises, so supporting them in identifying what measures that they can take in order to increase their energy and water efficiency. Drafting of Malta's voluntary agreement between the government and industry, and also data gathering in order to justify financial instruments and other financial support measures for the sector, which have been used to inform both national budget measures as well as financial instruments with European entities. I think that is a very short and quick introduction to myself. Thank you everybody for making today's workshop. Very excited and looking forward to it. Sonia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. Hello, everybody. A warm welcome also from Vienna. My name is Sonja Starnberger. I'm the director of the Energy Institute for Business, which is a small institute owned by the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. And we work on all topics related to energy efficiency and climate that are relevant for businesses. And mainly we try to inform businesses also what solutions there are, what possibilities there are for them to become more energy efficient, to use more renewables and be more climate friendly in a way that is also good for their businesses and gives them perspectives. And it's a great pleasure to be here today and see this very, very important event organized by the Turkish colleagues. And I want to congratulate them on this and on the many achievements they have already done. And it's great to learn from you and also maybe show a bit what we are doing here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Javier Cervera. I'm from Spain, from Valencia. First of all, I wish you everyone a nice International Energy Savings Day today. I work in energy issues from 16 years ago, but I'm an engineer in telecommunications. I'm a consultancy working in different areas in maritime, in hydrogen. I'm expert of the National Industry Board for green hydrogen. And I'm supporting about energy efficiency to the Valencian Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here to tell you some things about efficiency later. And I hope that you have a really nice journey today in this meeting. Thank you very much.
Actually, it has been really great pleasure to working with you, and it was a great teamwork. And after all these efforts, we are here and we are finalizing a really huge and hard work in terms of like energy efficiency audit, and that's great to see such a high number of participation and interest. Thank you for being a part of our team. So we can start the first part if you want. Can Polat Bey. So floor is yours, and we would love to see your presentation.
Evet, ekranımı paylaşıyorum.
Okay, then let me share my screen. Good morning, everyone. I would like to greet you everybody on behalf of Bursa Chamber of Commerce. Today we are going to talk about energy efficiency. Let me start by explaining why we need energy efficiency. I've been working in this area for many years. That's why I was able to summarize why we need energy efficiency in 4 bullet points. Of course, you can increase the number of those bullet points, but I think 4 of them are really key. Then I am going to talk about certain binding decisions or binding requirements because of climate change. What do we do in Bursa in order to meet those requirements? What we plan to do from now on? Of course, these are long-term plans. We cannot really prevent or mitigate climate change with short-term plans. How can we achieve zero carbon emissions target by 2050? What kind of a plan do we need to achieve this ambitious goal? These are some of the topics that I am going to talk about, and then I'm going to offer you a cooperation scheme. Why do we need to use energy efficiently? As I said before, I have summarized these reasons under 4 different bullet points. The first bullet point is national interests. I'm a citizen of this country, and I believe national interests are very important. The second reason is climate change. Climate change does not know national borders. If we generate emissions in this country, then those emissions are detrimental for every citizen in the world. So we are responsible from our emissions as citizens of the world. In 2011, a regulation was published for energy efficiency in Turkey, but that regulation has been amended recently. So I'm going to talk about that as well as the third topic. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about sustaining the profitability of enterprises. Of course, we always work to improve energy efficiency in the field, but the business community is mostly interested in maintaining their profitability. When you analyze the EU Green Deal, you can see that it is not just about environment, but it is also about commerce. It's also about the profitability of businesses. That's why I'm going to talk about why it is also important for maintaining profitability. Let's look at the cost of energy in our country. We spend approximately $40 billion for energy in our country. This is a huge number, and every year we allocate this budget to energy supply, and we are dependent on external supply forces, external supply resources for energy. We have been importing energy and you can see the number of the size of imports since 1990. And as you can see, the trade deficit in Turkey is mostly due to energy supply. If we can improve energy efficiency levels, we can also help bridge trade gap, trade deficit in Turkey. There is a research which has been conducted by the Ministry of Energy in Turkey. We spend $40 billion, but our potential for energy savings annually is $8 billion. It is difficult to visualize what I mean, but this is a true figure. So as you can see, this is 96 pallets of $100 banknotes. So $8 billion is equal to as many banknotes. I believe that this potential is underestimated. This is a very conservative estimate. I think our energy efficiency potential or energy savings potential is a lot higher than $8 billion. This is what I see in the field, and this is what I believe we can achieve. Let's look at energy consumption in Turkey. 40% of the energy consumption is done by the industry, 32% is domestic consumption and services sector, 20% transportation, 5% agriculture, and 3% other. So when you look at this pie graph, you can see that if we improve energy efficiency in the industry, it might really make a difference. Of course, domestic field, services sector, and transportation are also important energy saving sectors, but industry is still holding the lion's share. When you look at the distribution of energy consumption, 49% domestic and services, 47% industry, 1% transportation, and 3% agriculture. So let's look at the relevant literature in the world. Energy consumption per capita is an important indicator. The more energy you consume, the more developed you are. But I think what matters is not consuming energy at high levels. What matters is consuming energy efficiently. For instance, when you look at countries like Japan or Germany, where they have more than fourfolds of energy consumption per capita, the energy spending is one-fourth of Turkey. It means that their efficiency levels is much higher than that of Turkey's. Let's look at energy intensity. This is a very important indicator in terms of efficiency around the world. Of course, we need to consume energy at high levels, but we need to do it efficiently. The red dot shows Turkey. Our energy consumption per capita is very low in comparison with other countries, but our energy intensity is very high. We need to bring that down. We need to do certain things to do that. We need to have short-term and long-term plans to do that. And we will talk about what we can do in order to do this in this presentation. Let's look at greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions are very topical today. I've been hearing those for 20 years, and the media has been talking about these for many years, and a lot of developments have been taking place in the world. Greenhouse gas emissions is not about carbon dioxide. You can see the gases that constitute greenhouse gas emissions, like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, obviously, water, steam, etc. So there are many gases that make up greenhouse gas emissions.
When we consider greenhouse gas emissions in general, we see that in Turkey, consumption has grown. 200 million tons in 1990 went up to around 500 million tons in the 2020s. So we really have to manage these greenhouse gases. And as you know, our President recently announced the ratification of the Paris Climate Agreement. This has just been ratified in the Turkish parliament, and this involves a number of commitments. So by 2030, Turkey is now under an obligation, a commitment to fulfill some requirements, including the reduction in greenhouse gases. So our goals should also overlap with those of the government in that context. Greenhouse gases is an issue which has been discussed in Turkey for some time. There was a regulation which was passed in 2012, and then in 2014, there was another regulation which was about the monitoring of greenhouse gas emissions. Then there have been some communiques for authorization of some of the activities in this regard. And finally, in 2017, there was another regulation which was passed. So these regulations are mostly about measuring, verifying, calculating these greenhouse gas emissions. We have to make this more active so that we can actually fulfill our obligations. And measurement, situation analysis of the analysis of the current situation, and measures to reduce greenhouse gases are some of the steps that we need to take. Now, the European Green Deal, I'm now moving on to the environment. This is very popular. We hear about it everywhere, including on social media, NGOs, ministries, government, private sector organizations, and other development agencies are all focusing on what needs to be done in the context of the European Green Deal. In fact, there are quite a number of things that need to be done, and our goal here is by 2050 to bring greenhouse gas emissions to zero, so become carbon neutral. This is the goal for Europe, according to the Green Deal. And as Turkey, we have very close relations with Europe. 50% of our exports go to the EU countries. So it's really important for us to fulfill our part with respect to the Green Deal. So we have to focus on 2030 and 2050 and reduce greenhouse gas emissions until those dates. So continuing on the environment, the Paris conference focuses on some goals for environment, including some climate goals for 2030, 2050, the use of clean energy at affordable prices. There are a number of other goals which are stated. For our side, of course, we have to focus on the industrial aspect of these issues. Now, I want to say a few words about what's going on in the EU. I know that we will get some detailed information in the second part of this webinar, but generally speaking, I will just say that the EU is preparing a climate legislation to become carbon neutral by 2050. And the sectors included in the emission trade system of the EU will be enlarged. There is a trade system which exists, and there are also other activities regarding carbon zero regulations, and it includes some trade aspects of emissions. We have to understand, therefore, that work is ongoing at the EU for neutralizing carbon, and some of them will be very costly because they concern a number of important activities, and the EU is going to spend some money to do this. And so for countries which are exporting to the EU, it's important for countries such as ourselves to spend some money, in other words, on these issues, because we have to pay attention to what is going on. So there will be a cost involved here, and exporting countries therefore will have to spend some money in this area. Otherwise, there will be a number of issues that we will face. After the Green Deal was published, there was an action plan which was prepared by the ministry, and there's actually a message here, which is, in other words, this regulation comes from the Ministry of Trade, not from the Ministry of Environment. It comes from the Trade Ministry because what is done in terms of environment in this regard has a direct bearing on trade. And you can find this regulation on the website. There are 9 major headings, and there are 32 targets and 81 action plans. We read them, and these are very well planned, and they include, for example, carbon border adjustment mechanism and what needs to be done in that regard. Secondly, there's another section on a green economy and what needs to be done about green financing is another area which is also undertaken in this regulation. And there already are some mechanisms in this regard. I will talk about them as well. A clean economic and secure energy supply is another important heading. Sustainable agriculture, sustainable intelligent transportation, climate change. These are all other parts of the action plan. There's also the diplomacy aspect, and also another heading under information to be provided in the context of the European Green Deal. So these are some of the things that need to be done. And we place a lot of importance on this information activities. And as the BTSO, we have already conducted a number of important activities in this regard, because we have to inform our industry about what is going on, because in the future we can't just say that we never knew about this. We really have to understand what needs to be done and be prepared for it. Let me also show you a roadmap, Green Deal roadmap prepared by the Chamber. I will give you some details on this, but we as the Chamber are ready with respect to what needs to be done regarding the Green Deal, and we have a very strong team. We already prepared a roadmap which includes, for example, a determination of our goals, determination of limits and collecting data and applying emission factors. And the 4th step is the assessment of results and the reporting of the footprint. So what we want to do is when we are at a facility, we have to look at the amount of carbon according to 14064, and we take that as a reference value. Then our energy efficiency center, as I will explain further, provides some information about how these carbon emissions may be reduced. So these steps are prepared, they are put in a report, and then they're implemented. And we calculate the carbon levels after the implementation of these steps and look at the difference. So this is what we are ready to do as the Chamber. Now, continuing on with the environment, as you know, the name of the Ministry of Environment and Urban Affairs was changed to include climate change. This includes a message in itself. The name of the ministry has been changed to include climate change in its name. The action plan by the Ministry of Trade regarding the European Green Deal was published. Some changes were introduced to the laws and regulations. The parliament, the Turkish parliament, ratified the Paris Agreement. So there have been significant changes which will lead to a number of responsibilities for us going forward, because the government is taking some steps, so we should comply with those steps. We keep talking about the Paris Agreement. It's very popular, I would say, in recent days, because there's been a lot of coverage about it in the news. Generally speaking, what does it entail? It talks about temperature, financing, expertise, emission goals, sharing of expenses, monitoring mechanisms and losses due to climate. So the goal basically is to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius and to limit it to 1.5 degrees. This basically is the main goal. And we have 2 dates, 2030 and 2050. There will be another meeting soon, and Turkey, we expect Turkey to commit to reducing carbon emissions to zero by 2050. In the Paris Agreement, what is stated is that by 2030, carbon emissions will be reduced by 21%. So that's committed. So the Paris Climate Agreement, which we signed in 2016, was ratified by the Parliament, which makes it important to fulfill these goals. I am an engineer in the field, and I can say that we can fulfill our commitments with respect to the Paris Climate Agreement by 2030. I believe that this is doable. And as I said before, the carbon emissions in Turkey at the moment is about 500 million tons. This, of course, ties in with growth objectives. Turkey is a developing country. We have a growing population. We're industrializing, so we need to invest in the industry, but we must also reduce carbon emissions. But looking at the goals we have now, we can achieve the 2030 goals. I talked about $8 billion of possible savings, and I can say there's so much to do in the area of energy efficiency that we should really focus on this. For SMEs, for example, we have already provided studies for more than 100 SMEs in this area as the BTSO, and we see a lot of opportunity to use energy efficiently. Unfortunately, it's being used inefficiently right now. So what is a disadvantage in terms of inefficiencies could be turned into an opportunity. A crisis may always translate into an opportunity. So we really can make use of the current situation. And going forward until 2050, we have to do some serious work in order to reduce carbon emissions to zero. 500 million tons, I said before, is the number in Turkey. And we have to make up for 420 million tons of these emissions in order to make sure that we can bring down emissions to zero. Now, a little bit of background on the legislative framework in Turkey on energy efficiency. The law was published for the first time in 2007, and then in 2011 there was another bylaw about the use of energy and energy efficiency and enhancing efficiency. In 2020, there was a change which was introduced in the regulation, which provided us with some opportunities. In the law on energy efficiency, as you know, so companies have to fulfill some energy efficiency requirements if they consume above a certain level of energy. And there are certain grants foreseen within the law. Previously, this was 20% or 30% of projects up to 1 million. And there was a change in the percentage depending on the type of energy. But with the amendment in 2020, there are certain facilitations now, which means that opportunities are now available. New opportunities are available. For example, the most important, there is an efficiency increasing support provided by the state. The state can provide up to 30% for energy efficiency. So up to, if you're investing 5 million, up to 30% of that can be provided or supported by the state. So there's a lot of state support, government support. Another grant is about voluntary agreement support. That's how it's called. There, if there is a an effort to reduce energy intensity by 10% within a 3-year period, then 1 million of the money you have to spend to do that is provided by the Ministry of Energy. So this is really important. There's also an opportunity here for using alternative sources of energy, and solar panel investments on rooftops is considered to be energy efficient. Therefore, the energy saved is deducted from the cost, which is also another important opportunity. Furthermore, it is now made easier to receive services for energy management. In the past, there were a number of measures or criteria there, but with the changes in 2020, energy consulting companies will also be able to provide services regarding energy management. You used to be able to have one efficiency increasing project per year. Now that criteria is removed, so you can always provide new projects on enhancing efficiency and receive support. But of course, to do all this, you need to fulfill certain requirements. For example, you should have the ISO 50001 in your facility. This is really an important step. An ISO-based energy efficiency standard has become mandatory by law, which in my view is a very positive development, because this will certainly provide important the support to sustainability. In Bursa, and we work with a number of municipalities in the public sector, because energy management in the public sector is also an important part of legal requirements. And contrary to general expectation, the public sector institutions are in fact very keen on managing energy, so they are taking steps. Another requirement was about an energy efficiency study every 4 years, and this is now compulsory for organizations which have more than 1,000 TEP, and they have to present these studies to the ministry. Another important development has been about implementation requirements within 4 years. The projects have to be implemented in 4 years. These are projects which can create a return on investment within a few years, must be implemented within 4 years. And this is really important because we have seen through our work that the return on investment or the reimbursement period is really important. In Turkey, generally speaking, this figure is acceptable figure is 1 year. So projects which reimburse themselves within 1 year are accepted by the employer. When it's 2 years, employers think about it. And projects which have a return in 3 years are not always implemented, they're shelved. I have been part of a number of energy efficiency activities in Europe as well, and I know that in Europe, they are up to 5 years now. So industrial facilities in Europe are investing in energy efficiency projects which provide a return on their investment in 5 years. This is accepted and implemented. In Turkey, unfortunately, it's usually very short term. So the regulation is telling us that we have to implement projects within 4 years if they have a return on investment in 3 years. And to become a carbon neutral country within the projected time period, we really have to take these steps. And I believe that legal requirements in the future will be even stricter for us to be able to do this. Support is provided, like I said, projects up to 5 million are supported by 30%. And then in 2021, in September of this year, there was an announcement made by the Ministry of Energy, which stated that there has been some restrictions on these supports. And for 2022 applications, it was stated that for facilities which are over 1,000 TEP, projects with a return on investment of 2 to 5 years or less than 5 years will be accepted. So investments which return the investment on themselves in less than 2 years will not be accepted. There was also another project on replacing electric engines with more efficient ones, and it has been stated that engines less than 11 kilowatt hours of energy will not be accepted. And installation, heat installation and lighting projects are no longer accepted. All of this goes to say that the government is saying that heat installation or lighting projects or projects which are less than 11 kilowatt hours or projects which return them on the investment within less than 2 years should be conducted by the industry themselves. And this is an important message, because we really need to focus on more complicated projects which will have a return on investment for over a longer period of time. And these requirements, of course, is for facilities over 1,000 TEP. Those between 500 and 1,000 will still get support for heat installation or lighting projects, or projects which will have a return on investment of less than 2 years. So they will still be eligible for support from the ministry for those projects. Now, these are generally speaking the legal requirements. What are we as the Bursa chamber doing? I just want to say a few words about our center here. Our center was established in 2015 with the support of the development agency in Bursa, and we've done quite a lot since then. And we were able to focus on quite a number of things which were required by the industry. So we're very proud of what we have managed to do. First, the Efficiency Center is accredited with the Turkish Accreditation Laboratory. Our center is also active within the framework of MESYEP, which is a professional certification body. It's about professional competence. It is, I would say, the largest professional competency organization in Turkey. And we have 104 professions covered now, and 75,000 tests for professional proficiency were so far held in this center. Our center is also an authorized energy efficiency consulting company authorized by the ministry, which means that when grants are sought or whenever certain studies by law are to be conducted, our center can provide consultancy services to the industry in those areas. Our activities, we focus on resource and process efficiency. So we're not talking just about energy efficiency, but we don't talk about resource and process efficiency, because this is the only way we can achieve good results. Training is really important. Applied training is really important. We have a factory, a center where we can provide applied training, not just theoretical training. We are also a consultant for ISO 50001. We have auditors on our team who are very valuable. They contribute value to the work, and they provide consulting services for ISO 50001. Energy efficiency studies is a sine qua non, and that's also part of our work, and we continue to provide services in this area as well. Measurement is another important key aspect of our activity, because we can't manage something we don't measure. So we have to measure it first. And so we provide measurement services. Furthermore, we also work on projects and on especially the utilization of alternative energy sources, because to move to a green, clean energy, we need to focus on alternative sources of energy, and we will need to focus on some legal changes in that regard. With the changes in the legislation, for example, now it's become a lot easier to set up solar panels on the roof. In Bursa, for example, the reimbursement periods have gone down to 5 years. So we provide project services, for example, in that area. Application implementation is another important part of the work. The projects that we develop in these activities are implemented by the BTSO with partners. So we're engaged in the application of our projects. And this helps us to check what is to be done before we actually do it, because we have measurement and preparation, and then we implement these projects. And this is really important. We're also measuring the carbon footprint, which we do again according to 14064. We calculate and report these activities. Now, just some activities that we have done. I will briefly go through them. First, I want to say a few words about measurements. You see the pictures of some of the measurement devices on the screen. We need those devices to take measurements, and we have all of these devices, and we chose some high resolution devices so that we have reliable results. And we have been focused on all kinds of energy, coal, geothermal, or any other kind of energy. And we look through these measurement devices, consumption, we look at consumption, we look at losses, we look at any losses in pressurized air, etc. And we are not, of course, the only place who can conduct these measurements. Anyone who buys these devices will be able to do this, but accreditation here is very important. The BTSO Energy Efficiency Center is the only accredited organization in Turkey with respect to measurement of energy efficiency. And the reports that we have prepared are through the Turkish Accreditation Institution, recognized by also all the countries which have signed the reciprocal accreditation with the Turkish Accreditation Agency. We are the only organization in Turkey, and we wanted to accredit the center based on 17025. These are important because when we take measurements, you cannot do the measurement according to the manual of the device. You may run into some trouble, so you have to use some reference values which are internationally accepted. For example, if you have a thermal camera and you want to measure losses in heat over the surface of some devices, it's not sufficient to shut down and turn on a device and look at its screen. There is a standard method, international standard method, which is 13,087. So we would have to measure according to that standard, which is what we do. What do these standards talk about? They talk about where to take a measurement, how many measurements to take, what type of device is needed, what type of staff or qualified staff is needed. And it also talks about reliability of results and some range, a tolerance range. So these are the things that are explained in the standards, and they are really important in terms of these activities. Accreditation through 17025 will be a way to organize these processes. So this is a system which we can establish, by which we can establish a procedural system and conduct the measurements. Unfortunately, we have seen some problems. That's why I think accreditation is really important. For example, we went to a facility and they were working on some recycling activity, and there was some gas coming out of the stack, which was about 3 degrees. They were thinking of an exchanger, a heat exchanger to use to get the gas back and then convert it to water and to use it. But when they were calculating the flow on the stack, they did this by looking at the cross section of the stack and they multiply it by velocity, whereas gas changes according to temperature and pressure, so that volume has to be normalized, which they didn't do. And the company doing the measurement did not normalize the volume of the gas, and ended up with some unreliable numbers, and designed an exchanger based on those unreliable numbers and sold them to the company. Of course, when we got involved, we used standard measures to conduct the measurement, and we said that the flow rate was wrong, and that they were not actually creating any efficiency with that exchanger. So things had to change. So there are many examples. In Turkey, there are companies which are working in the area of energy efficiency, and they have to be accredited very soon.
İşaretlediğimiz alan var. Oraya çok girmeyeceğim ama şöyle
So an area marked with yellow. I don't want to go into the details of this, but let me summarize by saying that this is about elevators and security equipment. We are the first accredited body to work these areas as well. So elevator equipments and their safety measures are run by us.
enerji verimliliği ile ilgili
Energy efficiency
eğitim kısmına
trainings. This is my next topic. I have just quickly looked at the questions. We attach great importance to energy efficiency trainings, made a significant event. We have an applied training center.
dediğim gibi 2015 yılında yaklaşık 400.000 dolarlık bir
This was
yatırım
established in 2015, the investment of 400,000.
birlikte daha verimli hale nasıl getirilmesi gerekiyor? Onlarla ilgili çeşitli senaryolar hazırladık.
Necessary safety measures are in place. We talk about how to run this system efficiently, and we work on different scenarios. We also measure the gas that we generate, the steam that we generate, and we look at what needs to be done while we are distributing the steam that has been generated. This is a special boiler. You can see the shape and the color of the flame. Here you can see an observation chamber where you can observe the movements of the steam. This is the engine and pump systems training unit. In the industry, most of the energy is being consumed by electrical engines, and there are very obvious mistakes that are being done. For instance, you're working as an engineer in a company and you receive a request. I want to pressurize this much of water under that much pressure to this much height. And for that, you need to use this type of engine. But when you put that into practice, the plumber uses wrong pipes. And then the engine you designed starts consuming a lot of energy, but still does not create the flow that you have calculated. Only because of the plumbing mistakes, you incur a lot of losses in the system. Unfortunately, 90% of the enterprises we visit suffer from such mistakes. Yes, the engine is the right engine, but because of a plumbing mistake, there are a lot of energy losses. So in this training unit, we tell the participants how to design the engine right and how to design the plumbing correctly. We also train the participants about how to measure the flow capacity of the engines and what they can do later on to improve efficiency. So we work on different scenarios to give this training. And then we transmit the data that we have received in this unit on a screen. This is pressurized air systems training units. As you know, compressors are highly inefficient machines. That is to say, 94% of the energy fed into the compressor is lost. We can only utilize 6% of the energy in the compressor. And because it's already inefficient to begin with, we need to be very careful. The compressor needs air to cool down, and it also generates waste heat. How can we use this waste heat? And there are also loopholes in the system, or gaps, if you will. How can we prevent these gaps, and what kind of financial losses do these gaps create? So we train people about measurement methods, and we tell them how much saving they can achieve if they use certain tools or equipments. And what happens? Excuse me, I have lost the speaker. Is it the same for you? I cannot hear Jean Paulot anymore. His screen is frozen.
Okay, so let's see if Jean Paulot could reconnect the camera. Yeah. Jean Paulot,
Tekrar
are you there?
bağlanabil.
Jean Paulot, you are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Özür dilerim. Bir kopma oldu. Tekrardan hemen bağlan.
I'm sorry, I was disconnected.
Okay,
Now I'm reconnected.
you can share the screen again, Jean Paulot.
Okay, devam ediyorum.
Let me continue.
Soğutma sisteminde kalmıştık. Hemen oraya
Okay.
gelelim.
I was talking about cooling systems. Let me go back to where I was.
Evet. Makineye
There you go.
verdiğimiz enerji karşısında ne kadar yük alıyoruz? Burada onların
So
hesaplarını gösteriyoruz.
here we
Buradan
show
işlemlerden
people
gördüğünüz
energy input
geçmiş
versus energy output. And the participants
ne kadar verimlilik sağladığını, kaç verimlilik
do not really know the energy efficiency level of the coolers in their business. And because they don't know it, they cannot really do anything about it. So they go back to their enterprises, they do the measurements, and they take some improvement actions. It shows us how successful our trainings are. So we create awareness, and then we encourage them to take action. And then we have also the furnace systems and recovery training unit. This is an industrial furnace. So this is a recuperator system in order to recover the heat generated. How can you design the recuperator system? How can you measure the flow here in the correct manner? And how can you measure the indicators and then improve efficiency? This is a very special furnace. Again, you can see what's inside. You can see the amount of gas that we consume and the flow of air that we generate. You can measure all these online. There's another unit here. This is called absorption chiller. So the heat or the heated air can be converted into cooled air. So we talk about what kind of technologies can be used in order to turn or exchange heat to cooled air. We give trainings to ensure this as well. Lighting systems, this is the training unit where we talk about lighting systems. When you look at energy efficiency projects, most of them are about lighting systems. Everyone knows that LED lights are more efficient. If you just ask a layman in the street, he would tell you that LED lights are more efficient. But we have to pay attention to certain technical details in businesses, because not all LEDs are appropriate for all businesses. It is an electronic circuit, and this circuit has a driver, and this circuit also has a driving degree which is measured in milliamperes, and it has a heat resistance. So the chip that's used and the lens that's used all matter. There are certain specifications that have to be met. There are a lot of LED producers in Turkey, but not all LEDs are created equal for your business. And we have some unfortunate experiences as well. We were going to start an energy efficiency audit in an international plant, in an international production facility, and the production manager was taking us through the plant, and he told us that we exchanged that they exchanged the LED lights to improve energy efficiency, but there was a painting workshop just underneath it, so it was a very hot environment, and the driver in the LED, the technical specifications of the driver in the LED was not really fit to resist the heat. So its lifetime of 50,000 hours would be depleted much sooner. Unfortunately, there are such mistakes that we see in the field. In this training unit, we talk about how to ensure correct lighting, the distance of the lights to the floor and the angle that they are placed. We also measure how much heat is generated by LEDs. All right, energy efficiency studies. We have created a key, an answer key, if you will, for all enterprises. This key opens all the doors. There is no door that it has not been able to open so far, metaphorically speaking. So you can implement it as well. The first stage is examination, just like a doctor examines you. So you have to take a stock of the situation by examining your business. And then you have to diagnose the situation by making certain measurements using detailed equipment. So the first stage of examination is what you do by observing. And then at the diagnosis stage, you need to make some measurements and use some equipment. The third stage is writing a prescription, which means making certain improvements in consumption, identifying the problems and the ways to rectify those. And then we look at the financing of the process, how we can work with the government and other public bodies in order to finance this process. There are questions about my presentation. Let me tell you that this presentation is going to be shared with you. You can have it. The first stage is about identifying total energy consumption, taking a stock of the situation, looking at natural gas, electricity, coal, fuel oil, whatever energy source is being used. We look at how much of what is being consumed. There's a reporting format that the ministry requires, so we use that reporting format, that Excel sheets. Then the second stage is about identifying thermal losses. Let me go by fast here. Electrical systems, mechanical systems, isolated equipments, steam lines and equipments, and all electrical systems. So we use a thermal camera to make the measurements. So, and we report our findings. Lighting efficiency project, offices, production areas are being evaluated in terms of the lighting equipment that they use. We look at their consumption level, we look at the volume of light that they generate, and then we look at what enterprises can do to benefit maximally from solar light, because sun is an amazing source of energy. So we create projects in order to maximize solar energy utilization. And then we create a lighting project, create a lighting map. We look at the return on investment of different scenarios, including solar energy conversion. Let me continue. This is the fourth step, efficiency identification in boilers. We look at all types of boilers and calculate their their burning efficiency. You can calculate this easily. So we look at their current measures and compare it with their label values. Because after a certain period of time, they do not really match the specifications in the label. If you want to do some energy savings, you need to really measure the efficiency of the boilers in your enterprise. You should not only look at the efficiency of your boilers, but the entire system. We call this identification of thermodynamic losses. There are thermodynamic losses on the surfaces and also in chimneys. So, and then uh, benefiting from waste heat. This might be a furnace, a compressor, or any other waste heat that leaves out the enterprise from a chimney. So we make measurements in order to recover that waste heat. We look at moisture, humidity, and all other values. Cooling systems, we look at the COP calculations. There's a concept which is called free cooling. We look at whether we can do heating or cooling benefiting from the atmospheric heat. Unfortunately, this is not implemented at all, but it is very easy to do this in Bursa, and I'm sure it is also true for other cities. The free cooling systems are of very low cost and the return on investment is very short. So we work on the design of such systems. Pressurized or compressed air systems, this is unfortunately a huge challenge for SMEs. If there is a compressor in an SME, I always say we should start with fixing this problem because the compressors are very inefficient, they are not maintained accurately. This also leads to additional losses in terms of energy. There are also a lot of, holes or gaps in the SME. These holes create a certain noise, but it is not audible by ear. We use a special equipment to hear that. So this noise tells us how much air is being leaked out of those holes and what is the cost of that loss. So this equipment is a very specific equipment, and we use that equipment to measure those losses. Ventilation systems, automation is very important in ventilation systems. If the ventilation system is not automated, then the losses are significant. We try to measure those as well. Energy efficiency in engines. We look at all engines, especially those which are higher than 10,000 kilowatts. We create projects in order to calculate their energy efficiency, and COSGAP also supports such projects. We participated in one of those projects. COSGAP provides grant support to engine replacement plans. Steam lines, there are important problems in compressor tops. They are not maintained, and because they're not maintained, they create a lot of problems. So we need to measure those regularly. Another issue that's unfortunately overlooked, water efficiency. We have done a lot of activities in this regard, but I have to admit we were a little late in dealing with water efficiency, but there's a huge potential for saving. We look at water consumption per unit in enterprise. For instance, in textile companies, we worked on water optimization. We looked at the dye prescriptions or paint prescriptions to maximize water efficiency. Our experts team work on this and create reports. It is also very important to recover wastewater. Again, in textile industry, this is very important. Of course, this has to do with cost as well. It is about how the company sees this process. There are systems in the world which makes sure that zero water is wasted and all of it is recovered. We also focus on water recovery in reverse osmosis systems. There are huge gaps in Turkey about this, both in the installation of osmosis systems and their application. So if there are improvement areas, we also identify those. We also look at raw material water consumption and chemical and dye consumption per unit. There's a lot of area of improvement in Turkey for water efficiency, so we have been working on those as well. Of course, last but not least, alternative energy resources. It has become really easy to install alternative energy resources such as wind or solar energy on enterprises, so we have been encouraging this as well. Now I would like to talk about process efficiency, but let me check my time. I will try to go even faster than I already do. Process efficiency. As Bursa Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we established Energy Efficiency Center in 2015, and then we started working on the activities that I have described to you. We also saw that process efficiency also leads to significant energy savings. And then we ran a joint project with the Ministry of Energy and established a model factory in Bursa. The first one of those was established in Ankara and the second one in Bursa. We call this a Competency and Digital Transformation Center. We look at energy efficiency activities and process improvements. Then we combine these with a digital transformation. We are very proud of this project because this model is the first of its kind in Turkey. There is no other company or institution which works based on this model, and we can see the actual success story created by this model in the field. We use also lean management methods in addition to energy efficiency, and the last stage is digital transformation. So this is what really needs to be done. This is what the world is doing. It's not just about energy efficiency. It is also very important to improve the processes in order to minimize the losses. If you do not do this, believe me, you cannot really survive. I have really been to hundreds of thousands of enterprises. Please believe in me. Take my word for it. We need to do these. Otherwise, we cannot be competitive. We cannot really survive. If you want to be competitive, if you want to survive, you need to do these. There are 19 modules that we encourage, and energy efficiency is just one of them. You can call it lean approach or lean method. It doesn't matter what you call it. The second stage is process approach and standardization. The third is the study of the workplace. And the fourth step is creating a map of the existing value flow or value chain. These are really the bread and butter of what needs to be done, but unfortunately, I cannot go into the details. Total efficiency maintenance, OEE, SMED. This is set up modification in single digit minutes. This is not a challenge, this is an opportunity actually. There's also Jidoka, Poka, Yoke. This is about automation and elimination of errors. And we also work on the identification of errors and risk analysis. The ninth step is about problem solving, Gemba and Kaizen, and continuous improvements. The third step is about design of workstations. There are a lot of erroneous designs. Ergonomics is also a part of this step. What can be done in order to ensure a more healthy working environment for our people? The 11th step is about line balancing and material feeding. The 12th step is about complex or mixed loading, and the 13th is about capacity planning, Kanban and MRP. These are complex names, but these are all about process improvement in a nutshell. One of these modules, as I said, is energy efficiency, which is the 14th one. The 15th one is strategic performance management. 16th is competency management. 17th is leadership, which is very important. It's a sine qua non. 18 is performance and The 19th is process audit. Okay, let me continue.
Peki bunları yaptık. Sonrasında ne olacak? Tabii ki dijitalleşme.
Okay, what's the next step? Digitalization. If we do not digitalize, if we do not go digital, we will be missing out on a lot. So in this modern factory that I showed you about, we use IoT platform, big data, data analytics and algorithm, IT architecture, cybersecurity, simulation and digital twins, smart robots, industrial internet, M2M, M2P, communications, sensor technology, and also enhanced reality. This was the first phase of our digitalization efforts in the factory. The second phase is still underway, and the Ministry of Energy is supporting machine learning, artificial intelligence, integrated learning, and cobot applications are some of the projects that we are working on. Of course, we can give applied trainings as well, and at the same time, they visit the enterprises and see how we can put these into practice, how we can make life easier for the enterprises, how we can convince them to apply these methods. And now let me talk about strategies and plans in our country. This is a journey. The first stop in this journey is 2030, and the next stop is 2050. What kind of strategies and plans are in place in our country? First of all, the Turkish President's Office published the 11th Development Plan. It was really a great read. If you haven't read it, please take a look at it. It talks about competitive production and efficiency, digital transformation, qualified people, energy efficiency, livable cities, sustainable environment. These are the headlines or topics. Then industry and technology strategy was published by the ministry. This is also a great read, a very successful strategy. That strategy says if we want to meet these targets, we need to achieve digital transformation and an industrial revolution. So efficiency needs to be enhanced in production. It talks about modern factories, it talks about energy efficiency, it talks about digital transformation methods. All these are defined. And then again, there is also the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan for 2017-2023, which was again published by the ministry. 55 actions have been planned. The goal is to decrease energy consumption by 14% by 2023, and this is not an ambitious goal at all. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. A total of 23.9 MTEP worth of savings is being planned, and the total investment required is $10.9 billion, and the savings will be $30.2 billion. So 3 times higher than the investment required. But unfortunately, lots of companies in Turkey, especially SMEs, are not aware of these plans, but we need to immediately familiarize ourselves with these plans and start taking action. Again, the Digital Turkey Roadmap was published, and the Regional Development and Technology Roadmap was published. When I look at all these documents, I can easily say that amongst these strategic plans, certain equipments and facilities are required in order to take the necessary steps. Bursa Chamber of Commerce has completed all its shortcomings, devised its strategies to meet these goals, and we are fully prepared to take action. So it is very important that we collaborate.
Now, I would like to give you some information about some of the field activities. I'm also checking the time. Now, we have, of course, hundreds of examples of the kinds of things that we have done in the field. It would be impossible to show you all of them because we're involved in almost thousands of projects. One of them is about pressurized air because that's an important issue. We measured this in a factory, and you see here the results. This is area 1, and this is panel 1, and you see its picture. And there's a loss here in this area. The Turkish lira version of this loss is 2,400 lira per year. When you add these up, the second region, the third region, we have all the regions documented here. These are, by the way, very noisy environments, so you can't really hear the problems. You have to really check it with devices. So we check the device, we verify our findings. So the result of all of these activities have shown us that with an investment of 7,800 Turkish lira, they would make 79,000. So if they remove these gaps with 7,800 Turkish lira of investment, then they will save 79,280 Turkish lira per year. And it takes only 1 month for the cost to be reimbursed. Another example, again, with pressurized air. This is area 1, 2, and 3 of this factory. And if they invest 11,000 Turkish lira, they can save 187,000. So if there's pressurized air in the system, there's definitely loss, and so that's an opportunity. One has to really focus on this. And this company could not believe that they had so much loss, but they saw the benefit in their financials. And it requires some minimal investments, and they're able to receive a return on investment very quickly. Another installation example. This is very simple. Anything beyond 50 degrees centigrade must be insulated for reasons of energy efficiency as well as job safety. And in this case, investment was 129,000, and annual return from this was 286,000. And it was the return on investment was less than a year. So these kinds of things don't take very long to provide a return for the investment. Another example, this was about some steam lines and the stops on the steam lines. And there were some measurements we did in this case too. Unfortunately, experience sometimes may work against you. In this case, the master said, the person who was looking at this said that this was not problematic, but the device said that there was a problem with this stop. So we decided to dismantle it to see whether there was actually a problem. And if it was defective, then we said we will do what we need to do. If it's not defective, we said we will put it back in. We did dismantle it, and this was what we saw. So we measured all of the stops, and in the end, investment of 48,000 yielded 87,000 Turkish lira of savings. This one, again, from the steam lines, this is an economizer. Many boilers have, or don't have rather, some systems which include economizers. We should not really be heating the atmosphere. We can recycle this heat, and you can invest very little to gain a lot. This is an example of one case, but there are tens of other examples too. In this case, the investment was 164,000, and the return in earnings was 186,000 a year. And the return on investment was in 1.5 years. And so each year, this establishment continues to save a lot. The flash steam system, these are pictures that I've taken. This is usually not properly used. There's a lot of discharge going out to the atmosphere, and we can recycle all of the steam which is discharged in this facility. It's called flash steam, but I'm not going to go into details. But in this case, investing 8,000 euros gains 19,000 euros a year. and the return on investment was in 4.8 months. And there are tens of systems which we have already implemented similar to this. So this will continue to be a very important issue. We also run into other issues. For example, here is a steam separator. I took this picture myself. We were in a field visit with an engineer. We saw this separator mantled here, and it was wrong to put it there. But sometimes people are blinded to some of the things they do, so they did not see it, and it was a wrong separator. We told them that this was so, and he said that this was previously installed and he was just keeping it. So we really have to address problems such as these. And in this case, 16,000 lira invested yielded for 24,000 lira of efficiency, and it was the return on investment was in a matter of months. Another example, these are some of the pictures I've taken. I also take notes, I write notes on them. You can see lines which are intertwined, some improper applications. There are very serious problems. What happens is that you have a facility, and they have usually a central boiler, and then over the years, the facility starts growing. They keep adding lines, and from the steam lines, from the pressurized air lines, and they also lay electric cables, and it all ends up being a messy affair, which leads to a lot of loss in terms of efficiency. For example, in this facility, this is a dyeing plant, and in this, the whole system here was condensed, so it was basically clogged. Steam is produced and it goes out to the field in dry form, and we try to get it back. And in the meantime, the water is condensed, and the condensed water could not be discharged in this case, and the whole system was clogged, and it was trying to produce, but it was creating losses in production. So there was a lot of production loss here too, not just efficiency losses in terms of energy. And this was solved, and the machines, they heated up much faster than they used to as a result. Okay, Angela, I can see you, so I understand this is a message to me that I should wrap up soon. Okay, now loss of water. This is an example of what we do in this case. There was 12,000 tons of water which could be saved, and Turkish lira was equivalent of this was 42,000, and the return on investment was in a year. So there are many, many examples, hundreds of them I can show you because we have them. So I will skip these parts. You can always check these up when I share my presentation with you. This is another project. This was about lighting, and this was about an application to the Ministry for grants. The return will be in 1.7 years, and 30% of the investment will be requested from the government. Solar panels on the roof. This is another example, and in this case, we have asked for a written agreement, and you see the production and consumption figures here on the slide, and the return will be in 5 years, and this will prevent a lot of carbon dioxide from being released. This is another example, again, solar panels. I want to specifically talk about these two examples. These examples are a little different from the other ones. We're also looking at process improvement. What does that mean? If we were working only on energy efficiency, we could have saved 150 kilowatt hours of energy. But if lean management and digital monitoring systems are used and we can improve the process, then we can achieve, for example, in this case, 5,880 euros worth of extra earnings from production, 22.75 euros per month from labor costs, and 215 euros per month from electricity. So process improvement adds to the efficiency savings that we achieve through energy efficiency. Another example here, we also prevented losses due to stoppage. And that requires a very systematic study. You have to do Kaizen, you have to have maintenance programs, and you have to have spaghetti diagrams. So in this case, we had an 84,000 euro per year efficiency in product quality, 42,000 euros worth of capacity increase, 39,000 euros of savings due to a reduction in losses, and 24,000 euros per year of labor savings. So process improvements are also very important. And this one is about the total work in a factory. In this case, they had natural gas, 40% savings potential was determined here. We see 30–40% savings potential in many places. The ministry says 14%. We can actually find in real life 40% capacity to improve. In electricity, it was 9% in this case. This is another factory. And here we see natural gas, 14%, electricity, 8%, water, 13%, and 58% of capacity improvements were achieved through electricity generation. ISO 50001, I will be very brief. This system is really important for energy management. If you want to plan things annually, then and if you want to establish some culture, energy culture in a company, we really have to make use of this management system, because it's really, it facilitates things. It helps improve the brand image, and it's really a good way to systematically manage energy. I will complete. So, sustainability. There are lots of questions about sustainability that we receive, and I had actually talked a little bit about this when I talked about the roadmap. But under this heading, we have a number of things that we considered need to be done, and we have all the methods prepared for this, and we're aiming to conduct activities to ensure that we achieve energy efficiency, resource efficiency, and process efficiency. And we will arrive at this point, which is what the Green Deal asks us to do. So this will be our common denominator, because we will not have any other we will not be able to implement any other method. This is what we have to do. And these are some of the things we do on resource efficiency and process efficiency. I shared some of these previously, but I just wanted to show them to you, just to give you some more information about our roadmap. So I understand my time is running short. Actually, it's up, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I actually did talk about them to a certain extent at the beginning. So yes. And lastly, Angela, I just want to say one more thing. The Ottoman sultans, well, 33 of the 36 Ottoman sultans were poets. So our nation loves poetry. And Yunus Emre, a famous Turkish poet, once said that, come, let us know each other so we can do things together. So I hope that you will follow the dictum of this famous Turkish poet, and you come and meet us, and we can do things jointly together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean Paulette. I have another question, because Oye is here as well, that maybe she can support me. But in 5 minutes, we really do not have more time. But in 5 minutes, maybe we can go briefly to the questions that are on the chat.
Jean-Claude, çok teşekkürler.
Pelin Tuğba.
Thank you. Pelin Tuğba-Kurt is asking whether I can share my presentation. Yes, I can. May I ask the questions to you, because we will provide the presentation to them. Everybody's interested in the presentation. Thank you, Can Polat Bey. So we will provide the presentation to everyone. So we will, if you allow us, we will share your presentation on the website. The question that is mostly asked is about new factories to be established. For example, somebody is saying there should be energy consultancy, which is mandatory before the establishment of a facility. Another person said that their company is working on R&D in energy efficiency, and they are focused on some white energy facilities. And he says that they place importance on energy efficiency in their own sector. So they have their examples which are being cited. Another person said COSGAP had a support for the exchange of electric motors. Is there any new development on this grant by COSGAP, or do you know anything about it? The COSGAP support actually covers these areas. There were projects which were developed in 7 organized industrial zones in Turkey, and we had actually conducted some of these activities. But I believe, as far as I know, but you would have to look at the COSGAP website, but I think you can also individually apply to COSGAP to exchange your engines, motors, and get some support from them in that exchange. It would be a great opportunity, of course, regarding electricity engines or motors. Another related question, COSGAP provides support for the exchange of inefficient electricity motors. This used to be a pilot application. Is it still actively provided, this support? Yes, I think so. That support is still active. Ekin Hazal says, is there a list of companies which can provide measurement services? How do we access that? The biggest problem is not being able to measure, because then we can't measure. So could you please share with us a list of companies that can provide measurement services? We are the only accredited institution in Turkey. I talked about accreditation in one part of my speech, but other energy and consulting companies do provide measurement services. Their services are mostly not so much on measurement, but on some of the legally required processes. So we can provide this support. For example, if you have a request for measuring, for example, pressurized air systems, we can do this, and we can provide training too. Our goal isn't to sell something. Our goal is to teach as well different methods. That's why we can provide the information, and you can benefit from that if you like. Another question, who provides credit support for solar energy? At the moment, there's no grant for solar energy in Turkey, but the Energy Ministry is working on this. We actually applied for 2 facilities. If you consume more than 500 TEP, then you can apply for a volunteer and set up solar panels on the roof. And in 3 years, if the facility achieves 10% efficiency, then they will get 1 million from the ministry. So this is the way that works. Last question. We cannot take all the questions. Time is running. Maybe if we have time in the end, we can go back to some of this, but just one more example. Do you accept visitors to your facility? Yes, in fact, that was what was going to be my last sentence in the presentation. We do. We want to meet people. Yes, all these activities began in Bursa, but our goal is to serve the whole country, and we need it. We need to disseminate our information, so we'd be very happy to receive you. I invite you all to Bursa. You can always come, and we can always discuss these issues. No problem at all. Thank you very much, Can Polat Bey, then. So everyone is invited to Bursa. we are behind, so maybe just a 4-minute break, and then we meet again at 11:55 Turkish time or 10:55 EU time and start then. So just a 4-minute break if it's okay with everyone, because we're running late.
Yes, just
So
to clarify,
we'll see you in
if you don't mind, please don't disconnect anyone the connection. We will stay here. So just, 3-4 minutes, not more, because then we will have the second part, which is gonna be also deeply. So let's see in 3-4 minutes. Okay, let's move forward if the experts are ready. By the way, thank you, Jean-Paul, for all the questions. We will continue. I see that there are more questions on the Q&A for Jean-Paul, so we will go through them at the end with the questions also for the EU experts. So please do not hesitate to include them there. And then at the end, we will go through them. I saw also that there are some hand raised. So maybe at the end, we can give the floor to those that are willing to talk as well. Please, so yeah.
Thank you so much, Anjana. Actually, we can start if it is fine for you. So who will be the first? Javier or Jofra?
Javier will be starting. So Javier, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please confirm me that my audio is okay. Perfect. I'm going to share my screen with my slides and the issues that I'm telling you about today.
istiyorum.
It's now full screen.
Ekranda görebiliyorsunuz.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm speaking to you today about two important issues, footprint, carbon footprint, and water footprint. Carbon footprint report, it's really important. It's something really important that is coming. Many companies already are calculating the footprint because they want to do, because they have the obligation. We have the European emission trading system for the big companies that emit more than one quantity of gas emissions. But just now in every country in Europe and many countries around the world, the new laws are asking to calculate the report and to put currently and future laws to pay for the emissions that, for example, you can't reduce. It's very important too, due to the legislation Fit for 55%, because one of the legislations from the 12 or 13 packet of legislations is the carbon tax border. And the European Union is putting rules for the products and services that are coming to Europe from outside to try to do like in the same position as the European factories and companies that have the rules to pay for the emissions. So this is a really important tool that every company around the world, not only in the countries that have already the obligation, but around the world, will be something completely normal in every company. Big companies, small companies, medium companies. What is a carbon footprint report? It's the document to analyze, this is important, to analyze which are the procedures, the things, the elements, the facilities that you have in your company. To measure, really important, this word, because if you don't measure, you don't know the quantity, and you can't to do energy savings with objectives to reduce a percentage every year, for example. Okay, and the emissions that the companies produce in all the operations during every year. The report usually it's calculated for every year. And finally, you have three numbers: scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, basically. And in the beginning, perhaps the obligation are to calculate the scope 1 and scope 2, because scope 3, that like we are going to see now, is more complicated to calculate. Okay. The 6 gases monitored are the carbon dioxide, obviously, the methane, because methane is 28 times more effect for the gas emissions than the carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and the sulfur hexafluoride. That is really important in the electric components, for example, in the transformers, etc. So the scopes. First scope is direct emissions that the company produce from the facilities. If you are burning natural gas, for example, in a boiler in your factory, and emits, obviously, the emissions has to be calculated in the scope 1. If you have cars, buses, or trucks, like own from the company to do the business, you have to calculate the factor emissions from the fuel that you are using in these vehicles. This is a scope 1, basically. This is not really difficult to calculate. Scope 2 is when you purchase electricity or perhaps heating or cooling that you are not producing in your factory, because if you are producing heating, for example, with natural gas and you are consuming natural gas in your company, will be scope 1, okay? And scope 3, it's the most complicated because you have to calculate every activity from upstream activities to have all the components to produce your product, your service, and the activities that when you are selling your product, this product is producing a footprint, and all these activities or procedures that are happening after the sales. Here you have the description that I have told you. So scope 1, mobile combustion, really important, fugitive emissions, basically from refrigeration and air conditioning units, the gases that are used for the devices, because the effect for the climate is like 1,000 times more dangerous than CO2 emissions. And the process emissions that, as I told you, is every fuel or every emission that you have directly produced on your factory. Scope 2 usually will be only electricity that you buy from the utility, basically, but perhaps you are buying steam from other centralized factory or a district heating that is centralized in your industrial place. So it will be second scope. If not, usually you will calculate only the emissions, the factor emissions for the electricity. If you buy electricity with renewable guarantees of origin, will be 0 emissions, obviously. So the energy consumed in general is going to 2 groups, 2 scopes. The electricity consumed by yourself, by the company, scope 2, and all the other electricity that is consumed from your provider, from your customer when it's using your product. This electricity or energy is going to be added in the calculation of scope 3. And the scope 3, as I told you, we need like 30 minutes to explain every component. The GHG protocol put 15 categories explaining perfectly every one and how important it is to calculate, and the rules to calculate it, like the travels of your employees. Very important, the waste generated, because finally the waste is going everywhere and use energy and processes with footprint, carbon footprint, to manage this waste. When you purchase the goods and the services, capital goods, and the fuel related with the all activity from your providers, etc., etc. For example, here in Spain, now the companies are not obligated, except the big companies in the ETS system, are not obligated to calculate carbon footprint, but the ones that are doing because they want to do for responsibility, usually they calculate scope 1 as scope 2. We have 3,000 companies in Spain calculating, like optionally, the carbon footprint. From the 3,000, only 10% are calculating scope 3 because it's a big effort to do. But the rules and the legislation are going to have the obligation to calculate all the scopes. Activities downstream, lead assets, the use of the sold products. When you sell a car and the car is moving during 15 years, scope 3 downstream activities, the energy that the car is using during the life cycle. And why is important to calculate scope 3, really? Because I put here the example of Apple carbon footprint. You can see that the scope 1 is less than 1% of the emissions. Scope 3 is 0 because Apple has a really pushing objectives about renewable electricity, and they have installed and they are buying with guarantees of origin, renewable guarantee of origin. So it's scope 2, it's 0, but you can see here the groups of activities in the scope 3. That means basically 99% of the emissions. So scope 3, if you can calculate it, it's really important. You have in the carbon footprint report, you have many references, but greenhouse gas protocol, this website is...
Evet, burada karbon ayak izi raporunu görüyorsunuz.
Sorry?
Wait, there is a misunderstanding because, yeah, we are hearing the Turkeys on the English channel. Yes, this is the communication for the interpreter. Yeah, I think they have already changed it. You can continue, Javier.
Okay, thank you very much.
By the way, Javier, there is a question on the Q&A that someone didn't clearly understand the third scope. So if you could tell more, or you would like to wait until the end, as you wish, Javier.
Okay, third scope. Third scope is, for example, you are you have a car factory and you do cars. To produce the cars, you need obviously electricity, the lights in your factory. You need, for example, the electricity for pumps. You need electricity for machines, etc. on the factory. Okay, and you have, for example, a boiler because you need heat for some process in your factory. Scope 1 is, for example, the boiler. Scope 1 is, for example, the small trucks to move the components inside the factory. If the trucks are, for example, petrol trucks, small ones, the emissions that produce, this is scope 1, okay? Scope 2, the electricity from outside. So the rest of the life cycle emissions of the car that you are constructing is scope 3. Means inside the factory, you produce, you put together pieces of the car, but you have bought the glass from one provider. You have bought the wheels from another provider. So the glass provider has used a lot of heating to produce the glass for you. Okay, so the emissions that that company, that provider has used or emit to produce the glass for your car in your factory, these emissions are scope 3. And the same with the wheels provider. This is from the upstream activities necessary to have every component that you are buying, like a car factory, to construct your cars. In the downstream, when you sell the car to your customer, the customer are running the car with diesel during 15 years. Scope 3 is the emissions that the liters of the fuel that this customer is using during 15 years emit. There is an emission factor that is in every calculator. We are watching now one after this slide. All the emissions from this diesel during 15 years is included like one activity in downstream activities of scope 3. I don't know if like that is like more clear, the difference between the 3 scopes. So this is the reason that the scope 3 is quite difficult to calculate, because you need a lot of data, not from your company. You need to ask a lot about your providers, and you need to know how your customers are using your products. Okay, I continue. Okay, this is very common website where you have resources, explanation, guidance, and you have tools that tools are important to calculate the numbers to have the carbon footprint report. You have a calculator tool, and this is like the tool is an Excel document where you have different places where you put stationary combustions in your factory, mobile combustions for the small trucks that you have in your factory to move your pieces inside the factory, the refrigerants of the air conditioning units and the gas that you replace every 4 years, and you replace because you have lost it 1 or 2 kilos of gas, and this gas is very dangerous for the climate change. The purchase of electricity, Scope 2, and many activities for Scope 3 if you want to calculate Scope 3. Here, very fast, an example. This is one. This is the biggest electricity utility company here in Spain, for example, and every year publish the carbon footprint. Scope 1, all the activities, all the components that have inside the business, they produce electricity, so they have coal plants, they have natural gas plants, they have nuclear plants, etc. They have fugitive emissions because they have many substations and transformers on the grid, etc., etc. Scope 2, sorry, the electricity consumption for the auxiliary systems that have in every power plant, for example, and the building, the offices for the workers. They have 15,000 workers in Spain only, and 60,000 around the world. So calculate the electricity consumption in the building. If the electricity is zero emissions, obviously, this part of the carbon footprint will be zero. And 3, all the other indirect emissions you have here, and you can check one example from this type of company, big one, obviously. Important thing when you are going to calculate carbon footprint, you have to put from the beginning which is the scope that you want to calculate. This company has 40, 50 countries, but can decide to calculate only from Spain. Obviously, like a group, they calculate around the world, and you have to put all the activities that you are putting on the report. And finally, after you work many time with the tool, you have finally the different emissions. You can see here, Scope 1 is 30 million, and Scope 3 is more than 4 times Scope 1. So Scope 3 is really important if you are a responsible company and you want to say the society really which are your footprint. Okay, you can see here Scope 2, Scope 3, and now we pass the water footprint report. We are going fast. Okay. There are many options to calculate. Okay. For example, you have a water footprint network, or you have the ISO 14046. Okay, different schemes. This is quite more new than carbon footprint reports, so still are appearing tools, etc., and rules and obligation. Still is not an obligation to calculate water footprint, but responsibility from companies decide to do. Okay, a website with basically a manual to know how to calculate the water footprint. Many options. You can calculate the water report, sorry, the water footprint for your consumption, like a person. I wake up, I eat 4 fruits every day, and I move by car every day, and when I'm moving on the car, I'm washing the car 3 times per month, etc., etc. All the activities related with water that you use like a person, you can calculate with a calculator. In this website, you have one. I push you to try and to calculate your water footprint report. We don't have time now to do, but it's quite interesting. And products, water footprint for products. If you calculate, you know every time that you eat, for example, 2 eggs, how much water has been needed to produce, to obtain the eggs, and to put the eggs on your fridge. So every time it's more common to start to see the water footprint about the products. It's really important, not only products to eat, products that you buy. For example, the textile, okay, a trousers, I don't remember exactly the name, but every trouser to produce needs something like 6,000 liters of water. And this is the things that I wanted to tell you today. Now, if there is another question before I finish and pass the next one that I think is Jeffrey. Any question?
Okay, we can continue, Javier. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Sonia, I think you are the next. Would you like to go?
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you very much. I'm trying to share my presentation. Please let me know if you can see something.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. So yes, I was asked to give a short overview on the European Green Deal and Fit for 5 package, which I will do in the next few minutes. And Jean-Paul Bay in the beginning has already pointed out quite a lot of important aspects. So I want to quickly show, let's say, the development also of the plans of the European energy and climate policy. So some of you may remember that we started with targets for 2020. These were very nicely set in 20% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, 20% share of renewables, and 20% improvement in energy efficiency. And now we are developing further because we all want to contribute to the long-term goal, global goal basically, of becoming climate neutral. As you know, we all our countries, all our people are facing the impacts of climate change. So this is something we have to solve all together globally. And of course, also the EU wants to make a big contribution to that according to its strategy. And it has made a strategy to say we want to be climate neutral by 2050. And one first step to go towards this direction is the so-called Green Deal, which has been proposed early this year. And in summer, now was proposed the so-called Fit for 55 package, which is quite a big set of different proposals for legislation activities, but also for support activities that shall bring the EU closer to its new target of achieving minus 55% emissions by 2030. So this is an interim target. It's our next interim target on the way towards the net zero, which we want to reach in 2050. And the goal is to have this or to reach this in a fair way, in a cost-efficient way, and also in a competitive way. So what the EU tries and what all the member states are trying together is to, on the one hand, set targets and set also rules, which are sometimes very, very challenging and very demanding, but at the same time also provide support and try to find a solution where achieving this goal also has economic benefits, both for the households, for the people, but also for the businesses, help them develop further, help them become more competitive. In this sketch on the side, you see all the titles of the elements that were in this Fit for 5 package. But of course, the EU has many more elements that are continuing, that have been started earlier already and that are continuing. I will go back to some of those in a minute. And what I would also like to remind is that all these things that you see here, they are proposed measures. So the Commission has made a proposal how these things could be done, but now there are discussions ongoing between the EU member states with the European Parliament and so on to make and fix the details, how all this will be done in a detailed way. So for many of the things, we can already see the orientation, we can see where it is going to go, but we do not yet know all the details, what exactly will apply. In this graph, you see more or less the same things, but grouped in a different way. In the middle column, you see that there are different proposals where the main objective is to set targets. So it's also a discussion like in a family, you know, we want to achieve something together, but who should do what, who should contribute what? It's a bit sometimes of a discussion in the family of the EU members. And these are the things mainly that are in the middle column. So often also the EU gives a target to each of the member states, but then there's a possibility for the member state to decide how do we want to achieve this target. So the solutions can be sometimes different in each country, because everyone has different maybe priorities, different opportunities, different strengths that they want to bring in. I will give one example later on the energy efficiency directive, because energy efficiency is our main topic today. Then we have on the right-hand side some examples where really the EU gives rules basically that apply then on the whole market. For example, there will be stricter rules on the energy efficiency and the CO2 emissions that cars and vans and transport vehicles can have. So this will be something that affects all the slowly everyone that sells cars in the European Union. On the support side, for example, there will also be a rule that fuel stations for hydrogen and also for low carbon fuels will have to be placed in certain distances all over the EU, so that everybody that has a new car that is using these climate friendly fuels will also be able to charge their car or to get these fuels that they need. And also on the aviation and on the shipping sector, there are also rules that more climate friendly fuels should be used for the ships and for the airplanes that come to the European airports and ports. So there are some of those elements. And on the left column, we have, for example, other elements that interfere in the prices a little bit, or sometimes even strongly, to be sure that the polluting activities are not so cheap, because polluting activities bring a big cost for all of us in the form of floods, in the form of lack of rain and many such things. So these polluting activities get a stronger price, like in the European, the ETS stands for the emission trading system, which has been in operation for a long time already. And now also there, the targets will be made more challenging. The European industries will have to save emissions and will not be allowed to emit so much. And also new sectors like the maritime, the road transport and the building sectors that have not been in an emission trading system so far, they will also have most likely an emissions trading system for these sectors, a separate one. Also on energy taxation, there will be stronger, higher levels of minimum energy taxations that the member states are supposed to charge. Then every member state is free to maybe do a bit more on certain fuels or not, but there is a common minimum level that should be charged. And then the carbon border adjustment mechanism is something that is also very interesting for the countries that are importing to the European Union. It has been mentioned before, and I will show an extra slide later on, so I'll jump over it here. And all these things, as I said, come together with support measures. Because yes, for many of these things, you need very big investments in the beginning, both on the national level, in the countries, you need to update the infrastructure, but also in the businesses. There are many measures, as we saw, that can be done with small investments, and you can already do a lot with small investments. But then after a certain point, there are also things that cost a lot of money for buildings and for businesses and for households. So the European Union also tries to encourage member states to provide support measures for vulnerable households, but also for businesses that need to make investments and also that want to do research and development, that want to become more efficient. So this is always a combination of, on the one hand, challenging to do something, and on the other hand, also supporting to do something. And as I said, one of these measures is the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So far, as has been said before, I want to summarize that again. The emissions trading system for the European industries is going to become more demanding. So in order to help these companies remain competitive, the EU proposes that also the competitors that want to sell their products to the European Union should have a similar kind of carbon price that they should calculate with. So the idea is to charge a kind of price for certain products that come into the EU market, in case in the original countries, let's say where these products come from, in case that they don't have a carbon price. So if in that country a very similar rule to the European rule is already in operation, and the businesses are already facing similar climate efforts, then it is probably not a big thing. For those countries where there are not yet such rules, they are trying to make it a kind of level playing field to be fair for everybody, and also to ensure that, let's say, production steps are not moving to countries where the environment is not protected very well, because this would harm us all if the total emissions globally become actually stronger instead of fewer. So at the moment, the CBAM is under discussion for some sectors that are very, let's say, CO2 intensive, and very big sectors like cement, fertilizers, steel, aluminum, and also the electricity imports into the EU. What is proposed now is that there will be a reporting mechanism from 2023, so that everybody becomes aware actually what are the numbers. As was already explained before, you need to know the numbers, you need to know your carbon footprint, and then after this period that everybody can adjust also to these new rules and prepare for them, it is proposed that the charges will be levied from 26. Of course, since Turkey is an important trading partner also for the European Union, this may also have implications for the Turkish exporters if they want to sell to European countries, if they are in these sectors that are mentioned. There have already been studies by, for example, the EBRD to try and estimate what could this impact be, but to know it more precisely depends on the final way that the CBAM is constructed. As I said, it's now under discussion. I think the EU also wants to see a bit, since there are many encouraging developments also in the partner countries, and if we see that more countries are already starting to protect the climate as well, then maybe the mechanism will look different from a situation where the other countries are not so active. So the details remain to be discussed. For the Energy Efficiency Directive, it's similar. Here, I think many of the rules are actually at the moment affecting the EU countries internally. So there is not maybe so much direct effect on trading partners like Turkey or like Turkish businesses. Mainly the Energy Efficiency Directive again sets stronger targets. You can see that in the circle or the original idea of saving 32% is now moving up to 39%. So to show that we want to be more ambitious in this way. And there will be, let's say, targets for each member state, and the member states decide how they want to achieve these targets. But there are also some general rules. For example, the so-called energy efficiency first principle. That means that in public decisions, in many important planning decisions, the energy efficiency should be one of the main criteria. Like also, where do I put new infrastructure projects, for example, and an important aspect, maybe also for businesses selling to the European Union, energy efficiency will be more important in public procurement. So when national governments, when schools, when hospitals purchase products or services, they will have to look more closely on the energy efficiency of those products and services. And I want also to draw, everybody is now looking at the Green Deal and at the Fit for 55 packages, but at the end, I also wanted to remind you to keep in mind that many of the established energy efficiency policies, they continue. So for example, there are the eco-design regulations for many different types of products, from household products like washing machines, like lamps, but even to industrial products like compressors or welding equipment. There will be new eco-design rules for welding equipment that start in 2023, so that these types of products, they have to fulfill a minimum set of criteria if they should be sold in the European market. So this is also relevant for everybody who wants to sell their products to the European Union, to keep following these developments to be sure their products correspond. And this is, so to say, the floor. You have to achieve a minimum level, and then on the bottom, on the top products, you have the energy labels. So also the energy labels are becoming more ambitious. If you want your product to be on the top performing criteria, you also have to be sure to keep developing your products, because the consumers see when they purchase a product if it's an A class or a B class or a C class products. And then there is still ongoing support for research and development on different climate-friendly technologies. There is a big new program, let's say the Horizon Europe Research and Development Program. And as far as I know, negotiations are now underway with many different countries, mainly neighboring countries, and also Turkey. And it's expected that they will soon also be associated with this program, so that companies and researchers from Turkey will also be able to participate in these research projects together. Yes, and this is for my part. Now I want to switch over to Geoffrey, who also has some more details and information on good practices, I think.
Thank you, Sonia.
Just before you, maybe, Geoffrey, there is another question, I think, on the Q&A. I don't know, Sonia, if you have time to read it and to go through it. There is also a question asking if you can share the web links, if possible, as well. No, you are muted. Yes, Sonia.
Yes, we can share the links for sure. As regards the questions, I only see questions in Turkish at the moment. So if one is addressed to me, I would need some support from the translations.
No, there is an English question saying, can you share some information related with the financial support of EU to companies who want to install renewable energy systems? And then can you share the web links if possible? Thank you.
Okay, we will take a look at that also, yes.
Okay, Geoffrey, you can continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Please do let me know if it is coming up fine. Is this okay?
Yes, Geoffrey. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Those were some really interesting presentations. So thank you to my colleagues. Okay, what I thought I would do is I would start off by outlining some of the obligations under the Energy Efficiency Directive for businesses, and then exploring return on investment a little bit more. So under the Energy Efficiency Directive, large companies, so non-SMEs, are required to undertake an energy audit at least once every 4 years. And the first energy audit was supposed to be completed in 2014, 2015. And then at most once every 4 years after that, the non-SMEs would have had to undertake another energy audit. Now, the energy audits do need to conform to ISO standards, and there are exemptions for companies, notably those that are ISO 14001 certified and ISO 1001 certified. Okay, so jumping into the return, before I continue, sorry. As yet, there are no audit obligations for SMEs. However, national governments are strongly encouraged under the Energy Efficiency Directive to promote energy efficiency through programs, financial measures, and direct initiatives with SMEs. Okay, so let's explore return on investment a little bit. What I've got over here are data for all of Malta, where I'm from, following the 2014-2015 energy audit round. Now, so this is data relating to the non-SMEs, and it was extracted directly from the energy audit reports. So what is the process? The process is the law had just come into place. Non-SMEs had to engage auditors, energy auditors that were specifically certified to carry out Energy Efficiency Directive compliant energy audits, certified by the national authority following a training course. Once the audit is completed, and the audit needed to consider also several periods. So it wasn't just one season of monitoring, it was several seasons of monitoring. An audit report needed to be drawn up. We studied 30% of the energy reports for non-SMEs, and here are some of the conclusions on return for investment. So these reports had a total of 113 technical measures to be undertaken by the companies. And as you can see from the table on the left, the most popular measure was lighting, followed by electrical efficiency of equipment or machinery, going on down to insulation and climate conditioning, etc., etc. You see the cost of interventions in total and the savings potential for all of these in total. So basically, that brings us to the return on investment for Malta, which is the image on the right. So if you look, for example, at boilers, boilers had a 6-year return on investment. If you look at combined heat and power, 3 years. If you look at climate conditioning, 10 years. Interestingly enough, education had a return on investment period of 26 years. And from all of these measures that were in the energy audit reports, the quickest return on investment was water heating. Now over here, I want to link back to something which Champolat mentioned earlier. So these ROIs are project-based ROIs. So these are not theoretic. What do I mean by this? I would like to give an example of an air compression system, and this is a real example that we actually saw in one of our member factories. So this particular factory had significant efficiency gains if it undertook a project on its air compression system. And the project was threefold. First of all, the air compressors were not correctly calibrated. And a simple calibration would have yielded around 7% increased efficiency. Second of all, their compressor was an older model, which is not as energy efficient as more modern models. Third of all, they had considerable leaks in the distribution system. So their efficiency gains were not purely related to the age of the equipment and the corresponding increase in efficiency were they to replace their aged equipment with modern equipment. But it also took into consideration inefficient calibration and air leaks. And all of these things together would have fit into the ROI that would have been considered as part of these graphs. I am using this just as a case study because the same thing can be said for every single area. An example which Champolat gave that really stuck in my mind was the water pumping system, where the pumps were efficient and well calibrated, but the piping was not, and this led to losses. So for example, in that particular particular case, there would have been an ROI on that as well, but the ROI would not have come from more efficient equipment. It would have come from more efficient infrastructure to support that efficient equipment. And this is very often why I think ROIs are very useful indicators for businesses. However, even if the average ROI in the country for a particular application is a certain period of years, that could very well be different for an individual company, depending on the practices and the infrastructure which they have. Now, I'm going to come back to this report after my next section. However, as you can see, there is also a link to the report directly below these images. As I mentioned, the previous slides over here, this is information dated from 2014, which is quite dated at this point in time. I wanted to find you something a little bit more recent. So I found data for 2019 for you, and that is what I would like to share quickly. It is data from the PF4E financial instrument for energy efficiency. This is basically a collaboration between the European Investment Bank and the European Union, European Commission, and various national banks. So the way these financial instruments typically work is the European Investment Bank will allocate a budget. It would then seek partner banks in the various countries, and the businesses would be able to apply to the partner bank, and they would unlock financing which is more tailored towards energy efficiency. What do I mean by tailoring? I will show you in the next slide. But if you look at the right-hand side of this slide, you will see that there is a report, Energy Efficiency Projects in Europe, dated to 2019. I'm going to give you some examples from this report. The report contains, I think, close to 40 or 50 examples. I'm not going to give them to you all. However, you have the link, so if you wish to see them, you can see them later. So here are some of the projects which were financed under this financial instrument. And interestingly enough, they do give the payback period. So the first one which I wanted to share with you was the installation of heat pumps for an SME in Slovakia. This wasn't a very expensive project. It was a 33,000 euro project. However, annual savings are around 6,700, which means that for this particular SME, the heat pumps had a payback period of 5 years. Now, 5 years is not a very long payback period. It is quite long. However, when it comes to energy efficiency, there are longer, as you can see on the right. So this is a hotel. Now, this case study attracted me because it is a variety of measures which were required to contribute to a nearly zero energy hotel. Zero energy buildings is a focal point for legislation. So officially, if we look at the Energy Performance in Buildings Directive, the Energy Efficiency Directives, both of them do try to move buildings towards zero energy. Now, in this particular case, the project included VRVs, heating, ventilating, air conditioning, building envelope refurbishment, water consumption reduction, hot water preparation using solar collectors, lighting, some new appliances, a photovoltaic system, and a VAR compensator. That's quite a lot. However, in this particular case, it was only 95,000 euros, but the payback period was 19 years. So the combination of all of these measures together resulted in an extremely long payback period, which I am sure would not normally have been accepted. However, due to the availability of financing under such a financial instrument, it went ahead. A few more. Champalat measured lighting as an extremely attractive energy efficiency solution for entities which do have older lighting models. This is something which I think we see universally. And you've got a very nice case study on the right-hand side, hotel in Greece, the replacement of 500 lighting fixtures, which were at 80 watts each, 2 LEDs, total investment cost of just 35,000, but a repayback period of 15 months, tremendously attractive. On the left-hand side, you can see, yet again, a very long payback period, 24 years. This case study focused mainly on thermal insulation of the property, which is very interesting because very often the payback period is considerably shorter. However, in this case, it was a good 24 years. Finally, I would just like to invite you to see two of these case studies, and then I am aware that I have overshot. I will wrap up. So the first is a hotel, again in Spain, implementation of 16 solar thermal collectors, tubular heat exchanger, and an old gas boiler. Extremely attractive, repayment period of just 2.7 years. And on the right, a variety of technical measures, investment cost of 350,000 with a payback period of just 1.1 year. Okay. To conclude my section, renewable energy. So the EU's position is efficiency first and then renewables. Why? You don't want to be generating clean energy just to waste it on an inefficient application. It would be a little bit like pouring water into a bucket with holes. So you want to have the best advantage from your renewable energy plant. First, focus on energy efficiency to make sure that you are not wasting that renewable investment. Now, over here, I wanted to discuss with you two interesting case studies for renewable projects by businesses that are part of our energy cluster that are perhaps not that common. So the very first one, which you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, that is not the actual business, I'm afraid. It's just a stock image. It is car park solar. So at least back home, many businesses have rooftop solar. However, at this point in time, we are approaching a situation where, particularly on our industrial parks, the rooftop solar is close to capacity consumed. On the other hand, car parks are not. And what this does is it increases the space that the company can use tremendously. And it is a little bit more expensive due to the mounting systems required than rooftop. However, it is still worth looking into. And the other application, which I wish to share with you, because in our experience, it can lead to extremely large savings, particularly for larger buildings. There is one particular factory that I am aware of, which achieved a savings of a good 30% on its energy bill, on its heating bill, through the use of geothermal heat pump technology. Geothermal heat pump technology basically takes advantage of the earth, the ground, as a heat sink to cool or to heat the premises. And what I thought was very interesting is that one of the largest such systems in Europe is actually in Turkey, which is, forgive my pronunciation, the Umaniye Mall in Istanbul. So my suggestion would be, I can see Champolat smiling. I assume that I have destroyed the name. My apologies. This is something which there already is considerable experience in Turkey. And it would be very well worth exploring. What I would add is that even companies which have not had the facility to drill, because such systems do require a certain amount of underground piping or underground boreholes, have used, for example, large water reservoirs, typically firefighting reservoirs, to the same effect very successfully and at considerably less cost. So it might be something that you would want to consider for your own enterprise. I will close off over here and I will take any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Let me go to the gallery view. Now, there is one question for you, actually. Let me check it on the chat from Mr. Leif Duman saying, can these auto parks charge the cars?
Yes. They could charge the cars, they could feed back into the grid, they could feed into the energy used by the premises that is adjacent park. There are many, many options. It would need to be discussed with the supplier, but yes.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey, for your intervention, Sonia as well, Javier as well, and of course, Jean-Paul. I would like to ask, because we are running out of time, as you can see, we extended 20 minutes the training, but we wanted to make sure that you receive all the information. I think that's good for all of you. Does there is any other question for the experts, for the TEBD team? We are here to answer any questions. Otherwise, we will go to the conclusion of this workshop. Oh yeah, please. You are muted. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela. Actually, we had a few questions to Jean-Paul. We skipped them, and we may answer these questions if maybe in 5-7 minutes. Jean-Paul Bey.
Jean-Paul, what is TEP? And this is one of the questions. Do you have trainings? Are trainings free of charge? How do we get information about your trainings? Could you answer that? TEP is defined in the energy law. This is a common language to define the amount of energy consumed per year. And there are Excel sheets which you can have access to through the websites. But basically speaking, what you do is you take your 12 months worth of electricity consumption and you divide it by a certain factor. And you do the same for natural gas, total consumption of 12 months, and then you divide it by the same coefficient, and there are different coefficients for different fuels, and you find the annual TEP number that way. Our trainings, are they free of charge? We provide theoretical and practical training for free to organizations that consult with us for other standards, but we also organize some general training. They're usually more theoretical and free of charge, but practical training, there is a certain amount that needs to be paid to cover the costs, so that has to be covered. So we do charge for the practical trainings. Where can they find these schedule of trainings? From the website, from our website, because we announce them on the website. It's btsoevmo.com. Are you accredited with TÜRKAK for carbon footprint? I think there's a misunderstanding there. There is a communique on the greenhouse gases, which says that for facilities which are over 20 megawatts, or for iron and steel, or for concrete facilities, they have to have their figures checked by an accredited agency. That's one aspect. Then there is also the aspect of mitigating climate change issues, where there is no mandatory accreditation, and we are not accredited. But verification is different. There you have to have accreditation. So the answer to the question is, for 14064, we are not accredited, but we are accredited for others. Okay, thank you. I see no further questions. And I think we have exceeded our time quite significantly. I would like to thank everyone for their participation. This has been a very helpful training activity. You can always reach us. We will put the presentations on the TEBD website. There will be, under the capacity development section, a separate website, which we do have on energy efficiency, where you will be able to have access to the presentations. If you have any questions, comments, we're always happy to get your feedback. So please send us feedback via email. And I would like to thank everyone for their participation. And thank you for setting aside so much time to us. And I would like to thank our speakers for their presentations. They are truly great collaborators. We have a great collaboration with them. And I would like to thank our EU experts who are here with us, and also Can Polat Bey from the BTSO. Thank you all very much. And I would also recognize the support by TOBB, because this project is ongoing in collaboration with the TOBB. So we thank them as well. And I would like to thank Angela for the coordination of the event. Hope to see you at the next event, and I wish you all a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye to all.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Hoşça kalın.
Goodbye to everyone.